What's up, devs? Today we're going to learn how to containerize our web application, the movie app that we built in previous videos. We'll talk about what Docker is, why we need it, how to use it, and we're going to dive into Docker images and containers deeply. Let's not lose any time and get started. All right, before we start containerizing our movie app with Docker, let's first discuss what Docker is and why we even need it. So we can define Docker as a platform that provides isolated environments, also known as containers, which include all the software necessary to run your application. What does that actually mean? Imagine you have an application. In our case, it's a movie app, right? It can be any other project. So you build it on your machine, and imagine your machine runs Linux as an OS, right? You have all necessary SDKs installed, all extensions needed to build and run it locally. And now, imagine you move to a new computer that runs Windows or macOS or whatever, right? So it's a clean system, you have no SDK installed, just a browser, right? And your goal is to run your application on this machine and see it in the browser. And this is where Docker becomes really helpful. When you create a Docker image for your app, it includes all the necessary dependencies so your app can run anywhere Docker is installed, no matter which operation system you're using. No matter do you have dependencies or not, it's all will be there inside of your container, inside of your isolated environment. So isn't it awesome, right? So that's the main reason to use Docker, to make it easier for developer to run their app on any device. Well, with some limitations, of course. So now it's a little bit more clear what is Docker and what is purpose. You probably heard me saying the phrase Docker image, right? So let's just clarify what it is. Docker image is a snapshot of your application that contains all the dependencies required to run it. So basically, when you create an image for your application, it can be easily transferred to a new system and run without additional setup. Think about it like, okay, this is image, like a snapshot. It's a current state of your application, right? What dependencies does it have? What kind of operation system is there? So it's just basically all necessary information that is going to be used to build your application and build environment for this application, right? So you can think about it as an instruction or a blueprint, right, for how our Docker container should be built. So let's talk what is Docker container. So Docker container, you can think about it as an actual place where your application runs. It's an environment, right? So when you run your image inside a container, it has all these necessary libraries, OS components, programming languages, and so on. So your app can run smoothly. So remember, image, Docker image is a snapshot of your application. And a Docker container uses this image to recreate the necessary environments, have all dependencies, and run your app independently and in isolated environment. Enough theory. It's time to get hands-on. Now that we understand images and containers, we have everything we need to get started. Our first step is to choose the app we want to containerize. In my case, as I mentioned earlier, it will be the movie app. Yes, so if you did not watch the video, you can do it now, or you can just check out the source code. I attached the link in the description. So our next step is to install Docker. So you can go over here to the website and install it. Again, I'm going to drop the link in the description. So depending on your operational system, you might need different executable. So I'm working on Windows this time. Once it's installed, we just need to launch the app. So our step 2 will be creating a Dockerfile. So as you already saw on my previous slide, that was a Dockerfile is the first step in our workflow. So Dockerfile, basically, it's a file for you to define the commands that tell Docker how to build your image. I'm just going to use the command touch Dockerfile. So this is how my application structure looks like. So you see in our movie at backend, remind you, it will be tutorial for backend only for now. So we're creating Dockerfile. Now we can move to our newly created file and start writing the instructions. So let's see. Our first step, as I mentioned, will be defining our base. And we can find this base on Node website, basically. They provide us all Docker images. Again, if you're working with Java or other programming language, you can go to their websites and look for Docker images. So our first step is to write the from statement. In our case, we'll use from node 22. This means we're pulling a pre-built image that already has an operating system and Node.js installed. After that, I want to set the working directory. And basically how it looks like, we're typing workdir keyword / app. So app is our directory. So next, what we want to do, we want to copy our package.json and package log into our app. So I'm typing copy package asterisk, it means it can be package log or just package, right? .json. Also, I'm going to add directory, right? So /. So package, basically, it's our files that we want to copy, and the second parameter // is our destination. So our next step is installing dependencies, right? So after everything is copied, what we want to do, we want to tell our container to run npm install. So basically, container will run all this necessary dependency that we have and kind of build our project. After that, what we want to do, we want to copy the rest of the application. Again, parameter will be source and second destination. So I'm just going to type dot, and I'm going to type dot for our destination. So basically, from our local machine, we're going to copy everything into container, the same location in container. So next step, we want to say expose 3001. Our application runs on the port 3001 because this is how we set it up in our backend, right? So we're just going to say the same thing. And the last step we want to do, we want to start the application. So we're going to type smd, and now in our array, we're going to say node, index.js. This is what we're going to run. So basically, it's going to be run node index.js. That's it. So of course, if you have a Java app or C# application or anything else, a Python, so basically you have to always use a corresponding base image, right? Which you can fetch from Docker Hub, right? For example, we use Node today, but it can be anything else. So right now we can build our image from the Dockerfile we just made. For that, we're going to our terminal and going to type docker build -t. I'm going to call it movie-app and going to attach tag latest. So, and there's a trick. So space, and we have to add dot, because if you will not add dot, obviously you will not be able to create this image. What does this dot mean? It just basically refers where our Dockerfile is located. So it's located here, exactly we are located right now. And t means tag, obviously. So right now, at this point, we should be able to see the newly created image in our Docker desktop. Let's just check it out. Yep, it's there. So next step, we have to run our container. So we create our image. To run a container, we're going to use this command. Docker run -p means port. And I'm going to type 127, basically like localhost, right? 0.0.1, 3001, and our image name, movie-app latest. So basically, host port, right? 3001 should just like matching to port of your application. In our case, it's 3001. This is why I reuse it. And your container port should also match your app port. So 3001. Right now we're going to visit our browser at localhost 3001/get movies. And voila, we see all of our movies. Our backend does not run on our local machine, but it runs in our container. So basically, you can now run your application anywhere with Docker. Also, you can upload your image to Docker Hub. This is actually how you can be flexible, right? So other people can use your image and run it on their local machines. So this is where we pulled our node-based image from, by the way. A quick note about Docker Hub. If you ever worked with GitHub and Git, it might be easier for you to understand the idea behind Docker Hub. Basically, it's a place where developers and companies push images of their software. You can find databases, AI bots, other cool tools there. Well, of course, you can upload your own images, as we already talked about. yeah, so it's a very cool feature, so definitely check it out. Maybe you can find some cool images and play around a little bit. And the last thing I want to share is virtual machines versus Docker. You're probably going to see a lot of this comparison in the future, so I just want to clarify it right now. Virtual machines, they share the same host, but have a hypervisor. While Docker uses a single host and Docker environment with multiple containers, or just one. So every container having its own independent isolated space. So look at this picture. So we have our server with VMs and server with Docker. We can see our host, so it's all hardware, OS. Hypervisor is managing our virtual machine guests. Every virtual machine has its own set of like OS, other SDKs, configurations, and all necessary data, right? And if we're looking at Docker server, we have our host, right? So it's operational system, all necessary hardware, right? We have our Docker engine and have 3 containers that are isolated. They have their own environments, right? But they all shared utils. That's why Docker is very lightweight, because you don't have to create multiple virtual machines and you can save a lot of resources. That's the biggest benefit of Docker. Thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe, and check out my blog for new articles. See you in the next video.